Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The air inside the office of Dr. Adrian Thorne, NDM, was not merely stale. It was pressurized. It was a space designed for vulnerability, filled with beige armchairs, abstract art that meant nothing, and the distinct scent of expensive coffee. And judgment. Thomas Reed sat on the edge of the leather sofa. His hands, clasped tightly between his knees. Beside him sat his wife, Sophie. Sophie Reed was 28 years old. She possessed the kind of beauty that seemed to sharpen when she was angry. High cheekbones. Dark eyes that could convey 1,000 words of disappointment without a single sound. And a posture that was currently rigid with righteous indignation. She did not look at Thomas. She looked at Dr. Thorne, a man in his late 50s, with silver hair, and a face that seemed permanently etched with a look of intellectual superiority. The session began at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, Dr. Thorne began, his voice smooth and practiced. We are here because Sophie feels there is a crisis in trust. Is that correct? Sophie nodded immediately. She smoothed the fabric of her dress, a gesture Thomas recognized as her preparing for battle. It is impossible, doctor. I cannot breathe in my own house anymore. Thomas has become. She paused for effect. I do not even know the word for it. Obsessive. Paranoid. Thomas opened his mouth to speak, to correct the record. But Thorne raised a hand. Let her finish, Thomas. Part of active listening is silence. Thomas closed his mouth. He felt the familiar weight in his chest, the sensation of being underwater. Sophie continued, her voice gaining confidence. Ever since I got the promotion at the agency, he has been unbearable. He tracks my movements. If I am 10 minutes late, he is texting me. If I am on my phone smiling at a meme, he demands to know who I am talking to. Last week, he accused me, of having an inappropriate relationship with Daniel Vance, her department head. A man Thomas had met twice. A man who wore suits that cost more than Thomas's car. And who looked at Sophie with a familiarity that made Thomas's stomach turn. I just asked why he was calling at 11 at night, Thomas said, his voice sounding smaller than he intended. He is my boss, Thomas. Sophie snapped, turning to him for the first time. We have a launch coming up. It is called work ethic. Something you might not understand. Given how simple your job in logistics is, compared to the pressure I am under. Dr. Thorne made a note on his pad. The scratching sound of the pen was loud in the silence. He looked at Thomas over the rim of his glasses. Thomas, do you hear what Sophie is saying? She is describing a suffocating environment. When a man feels the need to monitor a woman, it usually stems from deep-seated insecurity. It is a projection of your own inadequacy. I am not insecure, Thomas said, trying to keep his tone level. I am observant. Her schedule has changed. Her passwords have changed. She takes her phone into the shower. These are not signs of a healthy dynamic. Dr. Thorne sighed. A sound of profound disappointment. See, this is exactly the toxic pattern we need to address. You are looking for evidence of betrayal. Because you do not feel worthy of her loyalty. You are trapping her in an outdated model of possession. Sophie is a modern, successful woman. She is free. She does not belong to you. He checks my location, Sophie added, shaking her head as if holding back tears. He is like a jailer. I checked it once, Thomas argued. When you didn't come home for dinner, and didn't answer for 3 hours. Because I was in a meeting. Sophie cried out. God. You are so pathetic. Dr. Thorne leaned forward. Thomas. Listen to me closely. If you do not change this behavior, if you do not learn to manage your emotional fragility, you will lose her. And it will be entirely your fault. For the next 40 minutes, Thomas sat there and absorbed the assault. They dissected his character. They labeled his intuition as pathology. They called his concern control. And his questions abuse. By the end of the session, Thomas felt hollowed out. He looked at Sophie, who was wiping a stray tear from her cheek, looking tragically beautiful. He looked at Dr. Thorne, who looked at him with disdain. Thomas paused. Maybe I have been too stressed, he admitted finally. The words tasted like ash. I don't want to lose this marriage. Then do the work, Thorne said coldly. Stop acting like a child, and start acting like a partner. Sophie smiled then. It was a small, triumphant smile. That is all I want, Thomas. Just trust me. Thomas nodded. But as he stood up to leave, the heavy feeling in his gut did not vanish. It solidified. He had admitted defeat to end the session. But the observer in his mind, the part of him that managed logistics, that tracked variables and outcomes, was not convinced. The data did not match the conclusion. The drive home was silent. Sophie turned on the radio, humming along to a pop song. Her mood instantly lifting as they put distance between themselves and the therapist's office. Thomas drove with mechanical precision. His eyes fixed on the gray road. Thomas Reed was a man of facts. As a logistics manager, his life was governed by schedules, inventory, and the efficient movement of goods. He understood cause and effect. If a shipment was late, there was a reason. Things did not just happen without a catalyst. He looked at the dashboard clock. 5:30. In the evening. His mind drifted back, involuntarily, to the beginning. 5 years ago. Sophie was 23 then. She had been different. Not just younger, but warmer. There was a transparency to her then. She used to leave her phone on the coffee table, unlocked. When they first married, the silence in their home was peaceful. It was the comfortable silence of two people, who knew they were safe with each other. Now, the silence was a weapon. They arrived at their suburban home. Sophie exited the car immediately, her phone already in her hand. I have to answer some emails, she said, not looking at him. She walked into the house, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Thomas followed, carrying the weight of Dr. Thorne's diagnosis. Insecure. Toxic. Outdated. Was he? He went into the kitchen and began to prepare dinner. This was his routine. He chopped vegetables with precise, rhythmic strokes. He remembered a time when Sophie would come up behind him, wrap her arms around his waist, and rest her head on his back. That hadn't happened in 6 months. 6 months. That was the timeline. That was when Daniel Vance had joined her agency. Sophie came downstairs an hour later. She sat at the island, typing furiously on her phone. Dinner is ready, Thomas said. I'm not hungry, she replied without looking up. I had a big lunch. You need to eat something. Stop controlling what I eat, Thomas. God. Did you learn nothing today? Thomas froze. The accusation was absurd. He was offering food. But she had twisted it instantly. I am just offering you a meal, Sophie. It is the way you say it, she muttered, finally locking her phone. Like you are my father. Thomas sat opposite her and ate in silence. He watched her. He observed the micro-expressions, the way her eyes darted to the phone every time it vibrated. The way she unconsciously touched her neck. Why are you staring at me? Sophie snapped. I'm just looking at my wife. You are studying me. It is creepy. Stop it. Thomas looked down at his plate. Sophie. Are you happy? I would be, she said, her voice dripping with venom, if you would just let me be. You are suffocating me, Thomas. Everyone sees it. Dr. Thorne sees it. My friends see it. You talk to your friends about this? Of course. I need support. I am living with a man who thinks he owns me. Thomas felt a spike of anger. But he suppressed it. The narrative was set. Anything he said to defend himself would be used as further evidence of his instability. Later that night, lying in bed, Thomas feigned sleep. Sophie lay beside him, under the duvet. The glow of her phone screen illuminated the sheets. Her thumbs moved rapidly. She let out a soft, stifled laugh. Thomas lay there, staring into the darkness. Insecure. The word echoed. No. He wasn't insecure. He was being deceived. He felt it in his bones. The problem was, in a court of law, and in the court of Dr. Thorne, feelings were not evidence. He needed data. He needed proof. The days following the first session were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Sophie moved through the house with a lightness that bordered on manic. She was radiant. Emboldened by the validation she had received from Dr. Thorne, she treated the therapist's words as a divine decree. On Tuesday, Thomas asked about her schedule for the upcoming weekend. "Why?" she asked, eyebrows raised, a smirk playing on her lips. "Are you tracking me again? Dr. Thorne said you need to work on your boundaries." On Wednesday, she came home with a new diamond bracelet. It was subtle, elegant, and undoubtedly expensive. "I treated myself," she said before he could even ask. "Because I work hard. And because I don't need a man's permission to buy things." Independence, Thomas. Look it up. Thomas knew their bank accounts. There was no withdrawal. "Where did the money come from, Sophie?" he asked calmly. She rolled her eyes. "A bonus. A cash bonus from the agency. You always assume the worst. It must be exhausting. Being you." She was rewriting reality in real time. A cash bonus? In a corporate marketing firm? It was highly irregular. But if he pressed, he was the paranoid villain. On Thursday evening, the atmosphere shifted. Sophie was getting ready for an industry gala. She spent 2 hours in front of the mirror. She wore a black dress that clung to her figure like a second skin. "You look beautiful," Thomas said. "Thank you," she said, applying lipstick. "Don't wait up. It will go late." "Who is going?" She spun around. "Oh my God. Here we go. It is a work event, Thomas. Eric, Daniel, Sarah. Do you want a list? Do you want their social security numbers? I'm just making conversation." "No. You are interrogating. It is toxic." She grabbed her clutch purse. "I am going. Try not to have a mental breakdown while I am gone." The door slammed. Thomas stood in the silence of the bedroom. He went downstairs and poured himself a glass of water. His hand was trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the sheer effort of restraining himself. The gaslighting was so potent. It was almost physical. He sat at the kitchen table and looked at his phone. He searched for the restaurant where she said the gala was being held. He called the venue. "Good evening. I'm checking on the start time for the marketing gala tonight," Thomas asked. "I'm sorry, sir," the hostess replied. "We don't have any private events booked tonight. Just regular dinner service." Thomas hung up. The confirmation hit him like a physical blow. But it also cleared the fog. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't paranoid. He was right. She was lying. For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight on his chest lifted slightly, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. The unreliable narrator was not him, it was her. She returned at 2 in the morning. She smelled of alcohol. And a muskier cologne that definitely wasn't his. She didn't come to bed. She slept in the guest room. The next morning, she was chirpy. "How was the gala?" Thomas asked. "Boring. Speeches. Bad food. You know how it is." She lied. With the ease of breathing. "Did Daniel enjoy it?" "Daniel is always the life of the party," she smiled. "He asked about you, actually. Said he hopes you are feeling better." It was a dig. A subtle knife in the ribs. Thomas stood up. "I'm going to work. Don't forget, second session is on Monday," she called out. "Dr. Thorne expects progress." "Oh. There will be progress," Thomas murmured to himself. As he walked out the door. Thomas did not go to work that Friday. He called in sick. He drove to a specialty electronics store. He paid in cash. He purchased a high-fidelity digital voice recorder. Small. Discreet. He sat in his car, holding the device. It felt heavy. Not in weight, but in significance. This was the crossing of the Rubicon. Once he used this, there was no going back. He returned home before Sophie. He knew her routine. On Fridays, she took her large designer tote bag everywhere. He went to the closet. He slipped the recorder into the designated inside zipper pocket of her bag. He tested the zipper. It made no sound. He set the device to voice activation. When Sophie came home, Thomas was sitting on the couch. Calm. The weekend was agonizing. Thomas had to act normal, while knowing that the device was recording her every move. Saturday came and went. She went out for brunch, which lasted 5 hours. On Sunday night, while she was in the shower, Thomas seized his moment. His heart hammered against his ribs. He unzipped the pocket. He took it out. He went to his home office, locked the door, and plugged the device into his laptop. There were 14 files. File 4 was the brunch. It wasn't brunch. It was a hotel room. Thomas sat in the dark office. He listened. He did not cry. He did not scream. He turned into stone. He heard the door open. He heard the voice of Daniel Vance. Did you get away clean? He thinks I'm eating eggs Benedict with Sarah, Sophie's voice replied. Laughing. That mocking, cruel laugh. How is the patient? Daniel asked. Oh, God. Dr. Thorne has him on a leash. It is hilarious, Daniel. He sits there and apologizes for being crazy. I almost feel bad. Almost. Then, the sounds changed. The rustle of fabric. The distinct sound of a zipper. I missed this, Daniel groaned. Show me, Sophie whispered. Thomas listened to 7 minutes of their intimacy. He listened to them plan their future. When are you going to leave him? Soon. Once Thorne declares him unstable. It will be easier with the divorce settlement. I want the house, Daniel. Thomas stopped the recording. He sat there for a long time. The pain was there, searing and white-hot. But it was eclipsed by a massive, overwhelming sense of validation. I am not crazy. He copied the files. He unlocked the office door and walked out. He went to the kitchen where Sophie was drinking tea. You okay? She asked. You look pale. I'm fine, Thomas said. His voice was steady. Just preparing for tomorrow's session. I want to make sure I say the right things. Sophie smiled. Good. I'm glad you are finally taking this seriously. Oh, I am, Thomas said. Very seriously. Monday morning. The atmosphere in Dr. Thorne's office was even more smug than the previous week. Dr. Thorne adjusted his silk tie. Welcome back. How was the week? Did we practice the trust exercises? Sophie sat with her legs crossed. I tried, doctor. But he was distant. He called in sick on Friday. I think he was sulking. Sulking is a passive-aggressive form of control, Thorne noted. Thomas. Why did you withdraw? Thomas sat comfortably. He leaned back. He looked at Thorne. Then he looked at Sophie. I was reflecting, Thomas said. Reflecting on what? On the nature of reality. On the things we are told. Versus the things we see. Sophie sighed loud and long. Here we go. The riddles. Can we just talk about the weekend? He asked me where the money for my bracelet came from. It is financial abuse. Thorne shook his head. Thomas. You do not own her resources. You do not own her time. I agree, Thomas said. I don't own her. Then why do you act like it? Sophie snapped. Why do you make me feel like a criminal for having a life? Daniel is a mentor to me. And you have turned it into some dirty affair in your head. It is a classic projection, Thorne said. You feel inadequate compared to this Daniel figure, so you invent a scenario where she is betraying you. It is pathetic, Thomas. Honestly, you need to grow up. Sophie nodded. He needs medication, maybe? Thomas watched them. It was a fascinating performance. The predator. And the enabler. I have something to share today, Thomas said quietly. Feelings? Thorne asked. Data, Thomas said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Sophie's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? Put that away. Dr. Thorne, Thomas said, his voice hard as steel. You speak a lot about truth. About my distorted reality. I think it is time. We aligned our realities. He tapped the screen. The volume was set to maximum. The voice of Daniel Vance filled the small, beige room. Did you get away clean? Sophie froze. Her face went from annoyed to horrified. In the span of a single second. He thinks I'm eating eggs Benedict with Sarah. Sophie's recorded voice was crystal clear. The mockery was undeniable. Dr. Thorne sat up straight. He looked at the phone. Then at Sophie. Dr. Thorne has him on a leash. It is hilarious, Daniel. He sits there and apologizes for being crazy. The silence in the room. was absolute. Then came the sounds of kissing. The wet, unmistakable sounds of desire. I want the house, Daniel. Thomas paused the recording. He did not look at Sophie. He looked at Dr. Thorne. The therapist's face was a mottled red. He was trembling. His professional mask had shattered. It seems, Thomas said, his voice calm and terrifyingly polite, that my intuition was not a pathology, doctor. It seems my outdated model of possession was actually just accuracy. Thomas, Sophie stammered. Her voice was weak. Thomas, turn it off. Please. You called me insecure, Thomas said to Thorne. You called me toxic. You sat there and helped her dismantle my sanity, because it fit your little narrative about men like me. I was operating on the information provided, Thorne stuttered. It is the truth, Thomas cut him off. She is sleeping with her boss. She is planning to take my house. And you, doctor, are an accessory to her emotional abuse. Sophie was crying now. Ugly, panicked sobbing. Thomas, it was a mistake. He manipulated me. Thomas laughed. A short, dry sound. Stop. Just stop. He stood up. He felt 10 feet tall. You are a fraud, Thomas said to Thorne. And you, he looked down at Sophie, are a cliché. Where are you going? Sophie wailed. Thomas walked to the door. He paused and looked back. Send the bill to Daniel, Thomas said. I'm not paying for this. Thomas walked out of the building. The city sounded different. It wasn't chaotic, it was just life. Moving forward. He drove home. He packed efficiently. Clothes, passport, laptop, the hard drive with the recording. He did not smash anything. He did not write a nasty note. Those were the actions of an unstable man, and Thomas Reed was the most stable man on earth. He was zipping up the suitcase when he heard the front door burst open. Thomas. Sophie screamed. She was running up the stairs. She burst into the room. You can't just leave. We need to talk. You can't use that recording. It is illegal. Thomas picked up the suitcase. He walked past her. She grabbed his arm. I love you. Thomas, please. It was just sex, it meant nothing. He stopped. He looked at her hand on his arm. He looked at her eyes. He saw panic. He saw fear. He saw zero love. You don't love me, Sophie, he said simply. You despise me. I heard you say it. You laughed at me. I was showing off for him. It wasn't real. It was the realest you have been in years. He gently removed her hand. I will have my lawyer contact you. Do not contact me. If you come to my work, I will send the recording to HR. If you come to my family, I will send it to your parents. Sophie turned pale. You wouldn't. Try me. He walked down the stairs. Thomas. She screamed from the landing. You will be alone. You are a boring, sad man. And you will be alone forever. Thomas opened the front door. The cool air hit his face. Better alone than with you, he said. He walked out and closed the door. He got into his car. As he pulled away, he looked in the rearview mirror. He saw the silhouette of a woman in the window. Watching him go. He turned on the radio. He calculated the route to his brother's house. 30 minutes. The traffic was light. The logistics were favorable. Thomas Reed drove on, leaving the drama, the lies, and the noise behind him. For the first time in a long time, the silence in the car was not heavy. It was golden. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.